Last September, I paid a visit to the Shine family. That name has become synonymous over the last 25 years with agricultural equipment. But they also still farm over 200 acres, mainly tillage. It's the last day of the maize harvest here in Adair in County Limerick, and it's a bumper crop. It's actually a big crop too, you don't get many taller than me. Because of ideal growing conditions this year, there are unprecedented yields all over the country. And when it comes to harvesting conditions, well, you don't get much better than this. Around 40,000 acres of maize was grown in Ireland last year, nearly all of it for animal feed. There are 150 acres here on this farm, and Gordon Shine is the man who looks after it all. What made this year so good for the crop?
Definitely the heat in the second half of June and early July made a huge difference to the crop. But also, I suppose, like with any house or with any crop, foundations have to be laid. And in April, we had very dry conditions, which meant very good seedbed preparation. Maize is a tropical plant, so it loves heat. But of course, all heat needs moisture. So where it would be traditionally grown, you'd have warm days, you know.
Moisture we have plenty of, heat not so much.
Yeah.
And we're in the west of Ireland, so that's an even adding to your challenge, isn't it?
It is. It's a challenge, but growing maize or growing wheat or barley or grass, there's challenges with all crops. So there's risk with growing any crop, you know. But what allows maize to be grown so successfully and consistently here is largely down to a process pioneered by the agri-equipment company set up by Gordon's father, Sam. In 1996, he established Samco, and its first product, his own invention, was a machine that sowed seed, sprayed herbicide, and laid a thin layer of degradable film over the seedbed. Now, over 90% of maize grown here is done using this method. The idea and the benefit behind the film or the plastic is to create a mini greenhouse effect. We want to keep in the moisture, we want to keep out excess moisture, and what the film does is it encourages the ground to heat up and it gives us heat. And it's the heat that gets the seedling growing, because the first couple of weeks for the maize seed is very important, and the quicker you can get it up out of the ground, the better the crop. These days, consistent supplies of maize are essential for dairy and beef farmers here. John Foley from Wexford was one of the first farmers in the country to grow maize. But back in 1971, he was doing it without the help of the degradable film. John, what happens if we can't grow on a large scale and in a consistent way? Where do we get our maize from then?
Well, if we cannot grow maize on the film in this country, that maize grain will have to be imported. And I think we're importing something like 650,000 tonnes of maize grain into the country at the moment. Now, we are producing probably half that in maize grain here. So that will put us in perspective of what the maize crop is worth, the dairy farmers in particular, for winter feed. So we're importing an awful lot of maize grain. Is there any way we can cut that at all? I think there is. You know, we've seen more and more contract growing taking place here. And tillage farmers are very often looking for an alternative crop. And I think maize fits very well into that system on tillage farms, grown on contract for either beef farmers or dairy farmers. The Shines have been selling this degradable film all over the world for 25 years. But in July of last year, an EU directive on single-use plastics came into effect that has banned its sale here. The issue was in relation to how long it took the film to completely degrade, sometimes up to 18 months. So the company has had to look for an alternative. This part of your farm, you're trialling something new. Yeah, here in this field and in a couple of our other fields, we've used a new type of film this year. It's a compostable type film. Right. And you can probably see, you know, there's a lot less of it there. Yeah, so this is what's left behind. Yeah, it's a fully compostable product, so it doesn't contain any oil-based residues or no polyethylene. And how much quicker does this break down than the other film that you've used? So we'd start to see breakdown here after about 6 to 7 weeks. Whereas with the other film, it could be week 20 or week 30 before we'd see breakdown. And then, of course, the residue would be very evident in the soil after harvest, which we don't want, you know. Is 6 or 7 weeks a little bit too soon? Yeah, certainly. Maybe, you know, we'd like it to last maybe 7 or 8 or 10. But I mean, the degradation process has to start sometime, you know. The new compostable film completely breaks down in about 9 months, leaving no harmful residue in the soil.
Samco is producing the new film at its facility right here on the farm, where they employ 50 people. The film is made using pellets of compostable resins imported from Italy. Gordon's brother Robert is in charge of operations.
So Robert, this is step one of the process.
Yes, this is the compostable bioresin that we have here in its virgin form before it's processed.
What's it made of?
So this is a blend of polylactic acid, starches, polyesters and certain types of oil and to make it lubricant. So in this process in step 2 here, we're blending the different types of resin together, and then it's been fed into the extruder and then melted from the bead form into a molten material, into the bubble that you see in front of you, melting it all down and mixing it together.
So this is actually the film.
This is the film being produced with air to cool it and form the shape. I'm making a balloon as it goes up to cool and then returns then back down to the front of the machine then again.
So how long, Robert, from step 2 that we've just seen to the film?
About 4 minutes, depending on output, yeah, as quick as that.
Samco began selling its new compostable film late last year and hope that in the near future that it will come to replace the old film in all their worldwide sales. Matthew Shine is head of sales. It's more expensive?
Correct. You're looking at an increased cost of about €60 an acre.
It's a lot for farmers to swallow, isn't it?
It is, it is. To combat that, we've invented the new narrow film system, where we're using half the amount of film per acre, which brings that cost down to the levels of what farmers would normally be paying for the film.
You're still in the early stages. Are you tweaking it constantly?
Yes, there's constant development, and I suppose that's the key about agriculture. With a coffee cup top or a car tyre, they can be developed day after day. But agriculture, you only get one shot, and that's every year. So even for the past 3-4 years, we've been developing this new technology, and it's taking a long time, but we'll get there.